Hey everyone, haven't done a video in a while. I want to talk about the Federal Reserve repo issue and then briefly touch upon this annoying China USA trade deal nonsense that Trump keeps touting over and over and over again. But the big news is the Federal Reserve repo situation. Not many people are really getting into the deep dark waters of what this really means and it's the end game, in my opinion. There's no way out of this. This is basically quantitative easing to infinity without Jerome coming straight out and calling it that. I have an article that I wrote about this. I break it down and I bring up some historical information about CDOs. So I bring you up to speed about what the CDO is and the problem it caused back in 2008 and how nothing obviously has changed to date, but now the bleeding is gushing in the banking system, especially on the investment bank side. My analysis, I think the major offender to this problem is Deutsche Bank, like I've always thought, and their 40-some trillion derivatives book that has popped. Plus, they're completely bankrupt and insolvent anyways. That's a fact. But anyways, so the title of this article I wrote is the Federal Reserve repo issue, and doesn't matter basically today in 2019 like it did in 2008, and it is the currently 2.5 trillion problem and counting. So I want to get right into the numbers. People are like, people are just going with the mainstream media news article of, oh, it's just $60 billion per month. That's BS. It is not that. It is way more. And so to show you, I have pulled the actual data from the Federal Reserve website, New York Fed. Here's all the data, as you can see. And I looked at the accepted numbers by the Fed that the bank submitted, for the money that they needed. And so I go down here and I just tally it up. So basically, from the moment this problem started on September 17th to, basically 11/19, so just a few days ago, we have the banks receiving 2.7 trillion from the Fed. So 2,700. This is in billions because that's how the Fed, outputs a number to the Excel spreadsheet. But obviously, anyone who does math and knows how to convert over 2,700 billion is 2.7 trillion. Then down here are the reverse repos. So RRP stands for reverse repo. RP is repo. So repo means that the Federal Reserve is giving the money to the bank, whether that's overnight lending or a term repo, and that has been roughly between 12 and 14 days. But I'm going to get into that in a second because now that length is going even longer, which is sending a lot of warning signs and red flags that this problem is just going to blow up. It's going to blow up the entire world economy, honestly. It says there's no liquidity in the system whatsoever, and that there are just tons of zombie banks that need this cash to even survive on a day-to-day basis. So anyways, getting into the reverse repo numbers. So we tally up the exact same amount of the reverse repo numbers. And I'm playing it conservatively. All right? I'm giving the Fed and the banks the benefit of the doubt here, which I'm kind of being sarcastic on that. But anyways, today the reverse repo totals in billions has only been 219 billion that's come back to the Fed. So when you go through my article, you'll understand a little bit better on what's going on and what a repo is. But basically, investment banks who need capital will go to the Fed discount window to borrow, and what they do is their collateral, or what they have, in exchange to get that money from the Fed is basically collateralized. In this case, collateralized loan obligations, or CLOs. And what that is right on the books right now. It's basically a mix between mortgage-backed securities and U.S. Treasuries, but mainly a lot of U.S. Treasuries. And this problem, I believe, really has come about because of the Fed holding interest rates at zero for 8-some years. So basically holding rates too low for too long. And that has screwed up basically, the yield and also this U.S. Treasuries even be able to service it. So something's really a mess. Obviously, I'm not privy to everything. I'm only going on based on what these, corrupt liars are presenting on their website. But going on this data alone, only 219 billion has come back to the Fed. So looking at that as of right now, that means about 2.5 trillion of this debt has actually been monetized forever by the debt. That means that these CLOs are unserviceable. There's nothing being paid on them. They are zombie debt. It's garbage. It's shit. Okay, just like in The Big Short, just it replaced it with shit. So this shit has now been offloaded to the Federal Reserve balance sheets that will never be bought back by the banks because they can't. It's garbage, so they don't want it. And how I know this is garbage is because what started this whole mess was back there in September 17th when the bank-to-bank interbank lending happened. What happens is investment banks went to borrow from regular banks. So banks, like your local bank where you got your mortgage from, Associated Bank, stuff like that. There's different divisions. But so on the on the consumer side of it, it's very, very, very safe. There's nothing really happening there. So they have a lot of cash on hand. So they can loan cash out to the investment bank side, and they earn a little fee, a little fee on top of that for doing so, whether that's overnight or even a term. But what's interesting is these banks, so you think of it like they're banker buddies, these banks wouldn't even lend the money that it was needed to have the liquidity or the cash flow, as we say, to settle up all their numbers on the investment bank side. They wouldn't even let them have this money for less than 10%. So the overnight shot up to 10%, even though the Fed fund rate was coming in at about 2%. Okay, so that huge discrepancy really sent a huge red flag and a shockwave because their own banking buddies smelled a skunk. They said, this collateralized debt that you have, quote unquote, we know it's garbage, and we know you're never going to be able to pay us back and get this back, from us. Basically, you're offloading your garbage to us. We're not going to take it. Sorry. And so that's where the Fed had to step in and basically start, monetizing this debt, which is what they've done. So the whole nonsense of $60 billion a month that the Fed is doing in repo is garbage. Their own numbers showing that it's way beyond that. Some days I've seen between term and overnight, we're getting, it's 120, 130 billion at times in just one day. So I've kind of, I've averaged it out, and I've, kind of factored in, the amount of money that is being paid back. Let's go over to the actual website here. Okay, like today, Thursday, November 21st, here at 1:15 p.m. Eastern Time, the banks, whoever they are, bought back 25 billion of treasuries from the Fed. So even factoring in a number like this, periodically when it happens, the Fed is still monetizing about $50 billion a day, give or take. You know what? Let's do this. I'll give them even more benefit of the doubt. Let's say they're only monetizing $40 billion a day. Okay, so Monday through Friday, that's 4 weeks, so it's about 20 days. So it is, there you go, $800 billion a month is what the Fed is printing in new money. This is brand new money. This is not, not coming from a magical space. This is just Fed creating new money out of thin air, purchasing up this crap from the banks, offloading it off their balance sheet, and just tucking it away onto, the Fed's balance sheets. Now that's a whole other dicey thing because theoretically the Fed reports what's happening on their balance sheet, but their numbers aren't matching what's actually going on here, what I've tallied up, because they think you're too stupid to really know that they're just lying and cheating and corrupt and all the above. But the thing that is getting more dicey now is, like I said, early on, first of all, early on, this repo operation was only supposed to go for like a week. They said, it was just some accounting mishaps. Again, lies, right? Total lies. Where these banks just needed some cash for taxes at the end of the Q3. That's all. No big deal. We'll be done in a week. Well, obviously, it's been way more than a week. Now, the next thing that's really concerning is the term lengths. So you can check on this page here on the Federal Reserve Bank of New York website, and you will see that they are extending the term date even further out now. So it was 14 days, as you can see. Now they're throwing in some 42 days and some 28 days. And here it is. So of at least 25 billion. So at least 25 billion is going to be lent out on that term day, and so on and so forth. So what does this mean? Well, This means that from the bunch of banks, there are some really bad offenders and there's some really bad off people. That even the 14-day term wasn't cutting it for how much garbage of these CDOs that they had to offload. So the Fed, not to basically draw too much attention to what's going on in the secretive quantitative easing to infinity thing, don't want to bring too much media attention to this. What they did is they just kind of extended. Well, we got one here for 42 days. So all you really crap off banks that had just a bunch of garbage that you need to offload, you don't have to worry about paying us back for 42 days. Now, where does this end? I mean, it could be, maybe soon down the road it's going to be, 150 days, 360 days. I mean, it's nonsense. It basically means the banks are insolvent. Period. The end. The musical chairs are about to stop. I'm just so sick of this. Anyways, that's what's really going on. So read it, understand it, digest it. Next thing I want to talk about real quick is this whole China deal. Okay, we're not getting a deal with China. We're not getting any deal with China that is in our best interest whatsoever, because we have no leverage. We have no room at the table to negotiate. Trump is a complete failure and a joke of a president. I'm not saying this because I'm Republican or Democrat. I'm neither. I don't even vote for a president because presidents don't do anything for the country. As we can see right here, the central banks own the nation. They own the world. These are the ones that set policy forth, not stupid presidents. So the other thing is, China is just laughing at us, and they're just kind of trying to buy their time in hopes that Trump won't be the president next year. Then they can just go back to their old ways of basically screwing us over. The only way for us to really negotiate with China is for the United States economy to take a major hit, have a major overhaul, because we don't produce anything anymore. So if we are a nation where we are nothing but consuming and dependent on consuming from a country like China, then we are always going to have to depend on China for this. There still is no other nation in the world that can produce what China produces for us at the price that they produce. We can go, there's a huge long debate why that is unfair advantage, because communism workers are told what to do and at what price they're going to do it for. I mean, you can go on and on, but regardless, we decided to get in bed with China for consuming, the crap goods that they send over here. This is what we get. This is the price we have to pay. So we're stuck. And the United States has really nothing to offer to counterbalance the trade deficit with China. We're just screwed. That's all there is to it. The banks basically were only slapped on the wrist after the 2008, so they didn't learn any lessons. They went back to their greedy old ways, 10 times worse, and they have crazy amounts of money in derivative losses on their books. This is what the Fed is trying to bail them out. Deutsche Bank alone has 40 trillion. God knows how many other banks, investment banks, what they have on their books. So basically, the U.S. dollar is going to just be printed into confetti. And this is showing you that it has already begun. When or when not the Fed is going to actually come out and be honest and say, we need to do QE. I don't think they're going to, because that will probably send the stock market tanking, which again, the stock market is going to tank regardless, because the securities and equities in there are so overvalued based on their earnings. It's ridiculous. So this is all some illusions, wizardry, trickery that will go on for a little bit, but it can't really go on forever. Not with the United States being the world reserve currency, of the world. This is just damaging so many other economies, and everyone is trying desperately to get out of the way of this catastrophe. That is why you have China, collaborating with. In a way, with Russia from an economic standpoint, the Silk Road. China is building out all their separate infrastructure apart from ours. So their whole new SWIFT system, trading oil and other commodities in their yuan and or gold, bypassing the dollar altogether. That is basically signaling an end to the dollar dominance, and we're just holding on by a thread. So Trump has to come out every frickin' other day saying, we got a trade deal, or phase 1A, blah, blah, blah. And of course, for some reason, the stupid people on Wall Street are, either mandated to buy that crap, and keep propping up the stock market, but everything is rigged. Everything is controlled and rigged when it comes to Wall Street. It does not reflect the normal economy. So there you have it. That's my take on it. Do your own research. Dig into my article, which I'll link to in my description. And yeah, figure this stuff out for yourself and be prepared. Thanks. Bye.